then by holding that even more tightly, try to let go also of the inner distractions, the continuity of thought patterns that might be passing through your mind, discursive thoughts, images. By not following them, let them subside. Just keep your focus on the respiration. Then bring your attention further inside to the mind itself, mental consciousness, like a vast sky within which all of our thoughts arise. Rather than focusing on the variety of thoughts and images, let go of those and focus instead on the spaciousness of the mind, the clear light nature. Within that quiet state of mind, try to generate a special motivation to benefit sentient beings. I'm going to meditate on emptiness, as was explained by Avalokiteshvara in the Heart Sutra. To overcome my own harmfulness of others, to actually become selfless and be able to work for their benefits. So first of all, try to observe the objective negation of personal selflessness. This sense of a truly existent I. You can instigate that by remembering some dynamic situation again. something that has caused your ego particularly to be instigated. You've been falsely accused or cheated, or very strong attachment towards something, wanting something. See if you can ascertain how this sense of I is appearing. Not a grosser sense of the self or I that might be associated with your body, your mind, or mental factors that might be identified with them on various gross levels on some occasions. But as Lama Tsongkhapa suggested, try to compare what the Buddha said was the mode of conventional existence of the I, merely labeled, merely imputed. See if that's the sense of the I that's appearing to your mind. This appearance of the I and our reaction to it, our grasping to it. Unanalyzed for numberless lives, just assented to, just accepted. The progenitor of all of our anger, our attachment, our pride, our jealousy, self-pity, depression. See if you can recognize the object of negation, the self, as one which is seemingly findable, existing from its own side, not just an imputation. Truly existing. It's this sense of I that we imagine feels slighted when someone criticizes us, feels cheated, that desires, wants to find gratification. And secondly, as in the four-point analysis, try to reach some certainty that if such an I truly existed, if there were such a truly existent I, it would have to be truly one with the aggregates, inherently one with the aggregates, or truly, inherently, findably different than the aggregates. Think over those choices. If anything existed, let alone our ego, we could always set up this statement that that phenomena in question either has to be truly, if it truly exists, it would have to be truly one with the aggregates or truly different than the aggregates. And then over time becoming more and more educated as to the faults of each of these positions. If the I were truly different than the aggregates, it would have no relationship whatsoever to them. When we had a head cold or we had an ache, we wouldn't say, I'm feeling bad, I've been hurt. We wouldn't have the sense of being stuck with a pin if a pin was pressed into our fingertip. If the I were completely inherently different than the aggregates, the I would not age, because it wouldn't share in the characteristics of the aggregates. We couldn't say, I'm getting old, or I'm still young. On the other hand, the other alternative, if the I were identical to the aggregates, as the aggregates are a combination, in this case a group of 5, in the desire realm, 5 aggregates, if it were identical to the aggregates, there would have to be 5 I's, 5 selves. Or if as the self is one, there is a sense of one self, there would have to be one aggregate. We couldn't say the person was imputed to or reliant on 5 aggregates. Putting these together again in the mind, having recognized the object of negation, and it's the way that it appears to be existing, it's truly existent, recalling the pervasion, that if it did exist this way, it would have to be one with the aggregates or different than the aggregates, inherently one, inherently different than the aggregates. And how it could not be either of those alternatives. It's not inherently one with the aggregates. Even one aggregate, even the consciousness aggregate, has many parts, moments, virtuous, non-virtuous, many ways to divide the consciousness, but the sense of I is a unitary oneness. Couldn't be different than the aggregates inherently. Findably different than the aggregates, as though we could separate the self from the aggregates, find it somewhere. And knowing that, see if what dawns upon your mind as a conclusion, this I that I have believed in since beginningless time, the conceived object of my ignorance, does not exist whatsoever. Total vacuity that appears to the mind, just the negation of that which was previously conceived to exist, the conceived object of this ignorance, that which we were imagining to exist, the truly existent I, as though seemingly existent before, now seen to be totally non-existent. When that begins to fade, see if you can regenerate it by the force of just mindfulness, recalling that emptiness, space-like emptiness. When the sense of certainty of that diminishes, you have to engage again in analytical meditation, which can become shorter and shorter each time as you get familiar with it. Then apply that to the aggregates, which are the basis of designation of the conventional self. Okay, maybe my self doesn't exist as a truly findable phenomena. Maybe it's just imputedly existent. Also, the form aggregate, my body, is empty of true existence in the same way. So you first have to identify the sense of the body, not just merely imputed concept to the collection of parts, the arms, the legs, the torso, the head, the fingers, the toes, the organs. Not just a name imputed to that concept, but the sense in our mind of something existing from its own side, irrefutably, findably, the body. If it were truly existent, it would have to be truly one with its parts, in which case there would be many bodies. Is there a multiplicity of parts, limbs? Or it would have to be inherently different than the parts. There would have to be a metaphysical body existing findably apart from the various limbs of the body. So think, form also is empty of true existence. Also the feelings that I experience, pleasure, pain, the neutral feelings that often abound. Feeling is a mental factor which is the experience of those three kinds of feelings, the experience itself. Although they seem real and findable, and the objects of our attraction or our repulsion, feelings also are not truly existent. If they existed as they appear to the mind, truly, they would have to be findable, either identical, truly one with a continuum of the conscious experience of feeling, or truly different, unrelated to that. As there are many moments of a continuity of feeling, and when we say a pleasant feeling, maybe you see a friend or you taste something very savory, something very pleasant. That feeling has a continuity over time, thought instance of the experience. But we impute feeling to that continuity. Can't be findable, can't be found on any of those moments. Likewise, our discriminations are also empty. The mental factor discrimination. Does not exist truly as it appears. It's just a name that we impute. the compositional factors, take anger and attachment in particular, even our ignorance, 3 poisons. If anger truly existed, it would have to be findable, either apart, truly apart, or truly one with the mental state of anger. It can't be findable, can't be found separate from the moments that we impute as anger, the collection of parts, the basis of designation of anger. Nor are any of those moments the concept of a truly existent anger that we grasp onto. There's no truly existent attachment or lust or dependence or addiction. Our belief in that truly existent addiction or lust or attachment is one of the factors that prevents us from really overcoming that. Attachment, addiction is just a name. It doesn't exist inherently. It can't be found apart or within the basis of designation of attachment. In the consciousness itself, the stream of consciousness, the 5th aggregate, the primary consciousness, six different varieties are eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mental. Seemingly truly existent, taken for granted, but just a name, just a concept. Even consciousness is just a concept imputed to the collection of parts. It's not truly existent. Due to this meditation, may I be able to overcome my poisonous minds, be less harm to myself and others, eventually benefit them. So to prepare for the actual class, to listen, to understand more about the subject of emptiness, especially the Bodhisattva's practice, I'm going to recite the praise to the Mother, the wisdom gone beyond, and then the actual Heart Sutra. Ma sam ju me sherab parul chin ma ke mingat nam ke ngo ni so ram Chakselo Tadyata Gate Gate Paragate Para Samgate Bodhi Svaha. Thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling on massive Vulture's Mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five predicates empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element, and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly, completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Tadyata gate gate para samgate bodhi svaha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. So, want to say Rwanda. No, was it?
Moana.
Moana. Rwanda is some country, I think. We missed you. So some people have come in. So introduce, I think Rita's the only person you might not know. Rita? Is it Rita?
Yes, and we have another Rita just joined us.
Venerable, I didn't see you came in very quietly. Venerable Rita, who you may remember from last year, a great teacher. You must be jet-lagged.
No, it's okay. I only came from Boston.
Okay. It's not truly existent jet lag anyway, right? Okay, so it's not so bad. Okay, so anyone have any questions from, we're in the midst of, we just finished the famous fourfold profundity on form is empty, emptiness is form, form is not other than emptiness, emptiness is not other than form. And we're going to talk today about the eightfold profundity, as it's called. I'm not sure if that's Don Lopez's.
Well, last time I tried to ask something, but I guess it wasn't in the right place, about other things that might be similar to emptiness in that they don't undergo momentary change, but they're not everlasting. And aren't all facts like that?
Facts.
Facts.
Yeah. Okay, facts. Well, like what?
For the,
That
like an American
apples
citizen.
fall. That you're an okay. So that you are an American citizen
For the
is a
duration,
fact.
It doesn't change moment to moment.
I'm not sure. You have to think. Does it exist forever? That fact that
No.
Venerable Dream is an American citizen?
No, I could change
Not even
it.
sure you are. Are you an American citizen?
I hope so.
Yeah.
So it could go out of existence, but while it's existing, it doesn't undergo momentary change.
Some things may be like that. I'm not sure. American citizenship is a little bit dubious, but maybe gravity or.
No, I don't mean like big, laws of physics, but.
Okay,
just,
but just something to think about. It may be true, but what you want to say is that there are some things like that that are permanent, some permanent phenomena. They're not changing moment by moment, because we spend a lot of time talking about the difference between eternal and permanent before, remember? Things that are momentary. Things that are not momentary, that are not changing moment by moment, permanent phenomena, might still not be eternal. So Venerable's trying to ask about that. Yeah, it's possible. There are other things that are
and
permanent.
then another one that might be also not changing moment by moment
Mhm.
is a mental image of something. Like
So-
sometimes you're kind of, I have a mental image of the house I grew up in, and the house itself is undergoing change. But
Mhm.
can the mental image of it be?
So this is a complicated discussion, Venerable. In Mind and Mental Factors, when we talk generally from the point of view of most of the tenet systems, if something is a what's called meaning generality, which is the appearing object of conception, what we call mental image, it's posited according to the different tenets as permanent, not changing. But there's a lot of doubt about that. I mean, when you think about it, in your own meditation, what if you think about your house, you have a mental image of your house, the paint peeling, or, the floorboards warping or something. Is your mental image changing then? Or you have a mental image of a cow, and the cow is moving. So you have to analyze what's actually happening. Maybe there's a mental image of cow and then a mental image of moving. But that particular investigation is worth doing, but let's not do it now. Okay.
So as a conclusion, there's both point of view.
I think Jeffrey Hopkins in his big book Meditation on Emptiness, when he says that to some scholars it seems like we were just talking about mental image, seems like mental image couldn't be permanent. And so when they say, what did he say in his Meditation on Emptiness? When some scholars say that in the debating courtyard, because everyone else is, you just read the text and it seems like meaning generality in general, something which is a generality has to be a permanent phenomena. So meaning generality, the appearing object of conception is just assumed and logically to be permanent. So when it's said, someone posits that it's impermanent, it's as though the heads of these debaters that you're debating against split open in amazement that you could even say such a thing. So maybe it's something for you to, there are a lot of things like this that may, according to certain tenets, be stated very definitively, but then other tenets state them the opposite. Like, do all sentient beings attain enlightenment? Is there a time when all sentient beings attain enlightenment? So there are different positions. Does samsara have an end? What would you say? Does samsara have an end?
It has cessation, but no end.
It has cessation, I'm not sure what that means. Okay. We'll ask our visiting scholar, Venerable Rita, does samsara have an end?
I think the Buddha didn't really answer that question, did he? So.
Well, when he was asked whether the Tathagata was reborn or not reborn, having to do with whether you're grasping the true existence. But let's say on the level of conventional phenomena, just conventional existence, relative existence, does samsara have an end? What's the general position, do you think?
Well, that beings are infinite, so then difficult, isn't it?
So it sounds like Lama Lunda talking. Difficult, I think. Difficult what?
That samsara will have an end.
But every sentient being, as who said? Someone was saying, every sentient being will attain enlightenment. Everyone has the potential and will eventually. Everyone's samsara, personal samsara, has an end eventually. So the different questions like that, you can hold different positions, and so it's sometimes maybe those are the ones that are worth thinking about more, rather than just saying, yes, mental image is permanent or mental image is not impermanent. It's not. It's something perhaps more subtle than that. But how about the gist of the subject of emptiness itself? The gist or the grist? Gist. Grist for the mill. Gist means the central point, the heart, like the Heart Sutra. How did you find our meditation? Did it make sense to you? Meditation on, first of all, like if we use the 4-point analysis, first you have to recognize the object of negation. So when you talk about the self, you have to spend some time actually in meditation finding that, not just doctrinally or saying the self is empty. The self is empty. That's not meditation on emptiness. You have to find that sense of self, recognize how it is appearing, and then recognize it as having an existence that is explained by the Buddha in the sutras and so forth, as seemingly existing from its own side. Obviously quite different than something which was imputed by the mind, just a concept. It seems to have a real, true, natural, findable existence, called true existence. If it existed that way, it would have to, in terms of its basis of designation, what the self is related to, let's say the aggregates, it would have to either be identical to the aggregates or different than the aggregates. Remember, we went through this. And then if you see that it's neither of those two, as there's a pervasion, it would have to be one of those two, you can see that the I doesn't exist. And what can help to bring that understanding together is to use an example. Like in the end of in a logical argument, you say, like, you give an example, for instance, the self is not truly existent. So what self would you be talking about? The conventionally existent self. So the self is not truly existent because it is not truly one with the aggregates, and it is not truly other than the aggregates. That would be the sign, right? Like a chariot, or let's say a chariot, like a cart, or like a Lexus, or like a Mercedes, whatever you want to say. You can give some example that might be more easily understood, the non-findability of something. You can kind of understand. Technically speaking, an example has to be something that you can realize the what? What do you have to? What's the quality of an example? You know, Frank? For an example of a syllogism. So what do you have in a syllogism? You have the subject, the predicate, and the reason, right? Say the self is not truly existent because it's a product. Because it's not truly one with the aggregates, not truly different than the aggregates. Let's say like an illusion, like a reflection. In some cases, some examples would, like say for instance, if you use a different reason, the self is not truly existent because it's a dependent arising, like a reflection. Reflection might be a very appropriate example there. What has to be true about an example? Could you just choose any example?
Seems more like an analogy than an example.
Example has to be, in a syllogism, has to be something that you can realize the predicate on by means of the reason before you realize the subject, before you realize the thesis, the self is not truly existent. You have to be able to realize, for instance, that a reflection is not truly existent because it's a dependent arising. That would be a proper example, a correct example, perfect example. Do you remember someone from Logan?
The subject being
Well,
quality of the
say you have a subject, a predicate, and a sign, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have an example. So the example has to be something that you can realize the predicate, that the example is the predicate before you realize that the subject is the predicate. Otherwise, it couldn't be an example, wouldn't be a proper example. Okay. Wait a second. What is it? How about form is empty, emptiness is form? Do you feel comfortable with the fourfold profundity we talked about last time? Everyone's studiously avoiding answering a question, writing notes down, okay? Mark, oh, you just got back from college, Chakra. Okay, so you get a pass. Frank didn't, though. The fourfold, what's called fourfold profundity, this famous, perhaps the most enigmatic statement in the Heart of Wisdom Sutra. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. Does that make some sense to you now, from what we talked about last time? Would you like to explain it? What's it getting at?
Well, it's telling you that I think it's trying to make the point that while they're not identical, they're also not non-identical. And that contradiction seems to be the point that they're making there.
Right. A lot of times when people read the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, they find it very, enigmatic, sort of mysterious or absurd, maybe. That when, if you were to say that different things are not existent, usually what's meant in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras is that phenomena are not truly existent. When it says there is no eye, no ear, no nose, and so forth. But then to get in to understand more deeply, just as you're saying, one has to realize that there are two levels of truth. There's a Oh, this cup is not empty. No, I'm sorry. It is empty, but it has tea in it. Let's say there's the ultimate truth of the cup. If I can, it's not as though something that you can separate like that. And the conventional existence of the cup. We can't think that, although form is empty of true existence, if this is the emptiness of true existence, we can't separate, we can't say that emptiness is some phenomena that we can recognize independent of the cup. There would be many kind of faults that we talked about last time. Remember? It's not that emptiness is identical to the cup either, because if form were identical to emptiness, then what would the main fault be? Remember? Who was here last time?
When you concentrate on emptiness, you find the cup.
When you were concentrating on emptiness or perceiving emptiness, you would be perceiving the conventional phenomena of the cup. When you were recognizing its ultimate nature, you'd be perceiving its conventional nature, which only the Buddha can perceive. So usually, only to the omniscient mind are the two levels of truth perceived together with direct perception, right? With one mind, directly perceiving. So either you are perceiving a conventional truth or you're perceiving an ultimate truth. Is emptiness a conventional truth or an ultimate truth? Venerable Renee? Ultimate truth. Is there anything else that's an ultimate truth? What about cessation, true cessation? Because isn't that different than emptiness? So different tenets according to, generally when we say what is ultimate truth is just one thing, just emptiness. So according to different tenets, true cessations are also ultimate truths, but true cessations mean the emptiness of the mind in which some of the afflictions have been ceased, have a true cessation, right? If you have a true cessation of afflictions in your mind, usually when we talk about the Four Noble Truths, we talk about true cessations, it just sounds like cessation is a phenomena, the ceasing of the delusions. But according to the higher schools, Prasangika, true cessation refers to the emptiness of the mind in which there is a conventional cessation. You've heard that before, Venerable Rita? Yeah. Okay. Everyone's heard that before. Okay. Yes, Venerable. You must have been really good in kindergarten. I bet you got stars and everything.
What's the difference between anatman and shunyata?
Anatman, or anatma, is what we say, no self, right? Or selfless. Not in the sense of, oh, Mother Teresa was a selfless person, but selfless in the sense of there is no self. So that's the terminology that's usually used in the Buddhists, almost exclusively in the teachings of the Shravakas and the Pratika Buddhas, and what the Buddha referred to as the Hinayana in the Mahayana Sutras. He mainly just talked about the selflessness of the person. If you look through the Pali Canon, at least as I've searched in the certain portions of the Pali Canon, there's only one sutra, or as it says, sutta, that uses the word shunyata, and it's talking about a slightly different meaning of shunyata than what we mean by emptiness here. It's talking about something else. In general, the word shunyata is not found in the Pali Canon. It's just anatma. Atma means self or soul, right? An comes first as a negative particle because the word atma begins with a vowel a. So one of the possible ways of negating that is with not just another a atma, an atma. Anatma means no self. So there that's mainly talking about the personal selflessness. In the Mahayana, the Buddha also referred to anatma of phenomena. We say the selflessness of the person and the selflessness of phenomena. So in the Mahayana, you could use anatma to be a synonym. It is a synonym of shunyata. But in the Hinayana, anatma or anatman, depending if you want to use that nominative case or whatever, that mainly is not talking about the selflessness of phenomena. It's only talking about the selflessness of the person. Indirectly, according to the Hinayana, the other phenomena are selfless in the sense that they're not objects of use or enjoyment by a self of persons, a really true, a self-supporting, substantially existent self. Let me check that out. This T, if there's no substantially existent person, then you could say that this T is not an object of use of a self-supporting, substantially existent person. Therefore, it is selfless. But that's kind of that's the way that it's used in the Hinayana, anatma. It usually doesn't refer to phenomena, only except in that indirect way.
So it wouldn't be wrong to substitute that word.
It would be wrong because
no
it
self.
would be wrong because that's not what the Buddha said. If you wanted to just explain, I suppose you could, but if you're translating, you wouldn't want to deviate from what the Buddha said to use another.
Because we never it says in emptiness or, like absorbed in emptiness. We don't
So what does that mean?
absorb in no self.
Yeah, we absorb in no self. When we meditate on the selflessness of the person, once you see that, just from our point of view, a Mahayana point of view, from the Prasangika point of view, that selflessness of the person is the emptiness of the person. But I'm just saying you wouldn't want to change the sutra and use the word selflessness when it's saying in emptiness, because it's talking about emptiness as being something more exacting. The Buddha talked about shunyata, the state of being empty.
What's the etymology of shunyata?
Shunyata means the state of being shunya, which means empty. So the word shunya, as I understand it in Sanskrit, if you look up, also has a sense of being obvious but not there, sort of like a balloon, full. Sometimes people want to translate, especially in the Kagyu Nyingma and Sakya traditions, some of the Western scholars, even Hinayana scholars, might like to translate shunyata as openness, sort of like a positive phenomena. But from His Holiness the Dalai Lama said many, many times that from the very precise point of view, shunyata is not a positive phenomena. Shunyata is a negation, is a negative phenomena. It doesn't posit anything like openness in its place.
Some people, when they say non-dual, is that sometimes a translation from shunyata? No?
It's not a translation, but it's a synonym of shunyata. Can I say it's a synonym of shunyata, or would I have to say it's a hypothetical synonym of shunyata? Is shunyata exist? Shunyata doesn't exist? You can't realize shunyata then, because you can only realize things that exist.
Well, it's empty of its own nature.
But does shunyata exist? Venerable, I will use you as the final arbiter.
Oh.
Does shunyata exist? Yeah, of course, shunyata exists. Yeah.
As
that
a
thing, right?
non-existent.
As
Okay,
a
I'm
fact.
catching. Shunyata exists. What about true existence? Does true existence exist? No. Remember? Remember when we had these various hypothetical synonyms of true existence? We said they're hypothetical synonyms because true existence doesn't exist. For something to be synonyms. Two things would have to both exist. But shunyata exists, and it has various synonyms. In some cases, it's called non-duality. Sometimes it's called the dharma dhatu, the sphere of reality, the ultimate limit, selflessness of phenomena. Let's take a break, and yeah, I'm glad to hear you're so enthusiastic. Let's take a short break.
Sorry, that just...
Okay. All set? So, Venerable Rene was asking about, in the break time, he was asking about, kind of the feeling that if you meditate on the emptiness of phenomena, and you have some kind of some sense, maybe this is some experience, not sure, and then you rise from that, but still phenomena appear again to be truly existent, don't they? Do they appear to be truly existent or not when you arise? Maybe they don't? They do until you become a Buddha. Even 10th level bodhisattva phenomena appear to be truly existent. So when you talk about illusion, you remember there's two kinds of meditation on emptiness, the space-like meditation on emptiness and illusion-like meditation on emptiness. So space-like meditation on emptiness means when you have, by the force of your analysis, ascertained that the phenomena that you were previously conceiving of to be truly existent, remember when I talked about the conceived object? That's the object you're believing in. Kind of like behind the appearance, like it's really something there. When you realize it's not there at all, like the shadow is empty of boogeyman. There's no boogeyman there, right? At that point, you would be meditating on the space-like meditation on emptiness. Let's say the emptiness of the cup or the emptiness of yourself. At that point, you're not perceiving the self, right? There's no self appearing that you're kind of saying, oh, it's empty. If you have space-like meditation on emptiness, the only thing that appears to your consciousness is total vacuity. And you're not even thinking, or you shouldn't be thinking, this is emptiness. If you're thinking, this is emptiness, I've got it, that's not space-like meditation on emptiness. Only vacuity appears. There's not even a conception of your, if you have a deep realization, there's not even a differentiation between the self, like I am perceiving emptiness. There's not a perception of the self. The only thing that you're perceiving is this vacuity, emptiness. But even though you're not perceiving the cup, let's say, or the self, let's say the self, you're not perceiving the conventional self or the truly existent self. You're not perceiving any conventional phenomena. Still, there's a certainty in the mind that can be recalled in post-meditation that, that was empty. Mm-hmm. You can afterwards you say, the self is empty. But in that meditation, you shouldn't be thinking, this is emptiness, the self is empty. You should just be focusing on that vacuity. That has to be, that certainty can arise because that emptiness is induced, that meditative equipoise is induced by a correct logical argument. Okay? So let's go on a little further. Venerable Dreame wanted to go on to some other interesting points, but I thought unless we go a little bit further, we won't finish the text, and that's always embarrassing. Not that embarrassment is a bad thing, but... So, we said form is empty, emptiness is form is not other than form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. So we mentioned this is a way to meditate on this fourfold profundity with each of the aggregates. Not just that they're empty, but the emptiness that you're perceiving is not something which is the very nature of that. Let's say, is the nature of feeling, if you take the second one, feeling, or form. That's second one after that is feeling. And that emptiness is not other than form. It's not something that can be perceived other than form. The form is also not something that can be perceived or is of a completely independent nature from emptiness. So that was these fourfold type of profound meditation. Then Avalokiteshvara says, Shariputra, likewise means in the same way, all phenomena are emptiness. Now, before we said form is empty, emptiness is form. Here it says, therefore, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness. Some of the translations from the Tibetan and the Sanskrit have them reversed. They say form is emptiness, emptiness is form. And here they say, therefore, likewise, all phenomena are empty. But the commentaries that we have, at least the ones that come down through Atisha and others, seem to have this way. Form is empty, emptiness is form there. And now it says all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased. They form a pair, right? Production and cessation are kind of antithetical to one another. Stainless, not without stain. Not deficient, not fulfilled. The different ways you can translate these 8 things. So there's different ways of explaining this in different Indian commentaries, not all of which are similar. They're quite a diverse way of explaining it. But one way we can understand it, the 2 main ways we can understand that this is now applying the understanding of emptiness to various kinds of conventional phenomena to get a finer understanding, which one way of understanding it. Other way is understanding it in terms of the 3 doors of liberation. Have you heard of the doors of liberation before? I don't mean a book or... Have you heard? Diana? What are the 3 doors of liberation?
I'm kind of blanking right now, but I heard it.
So Lisa knows. She's... No?
We're just talking.
Oh, you're just talking. Okay. What they used to do in kindergarten or something. If you're talking, you have to tell the class.
Is it
Pardon?
that?
Yes.
Sure.
What is it?
Selflessness, signlessness, and what's the other one? Wishlessness, yeah, I think so.
So what do you say?
Selflessness,
Selflessness,
signlessness,
signlessness,
wishlessness.
wishlessness. Actually, the first one we usually say is emptiness.
Emptiness, okay.
Emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. Those are called the 3 doors of liberation. In various, it's a subject that comes in many, many, many sutras. And even in some tantric sadhanas, it talks about the 4 doors of emptiness, kind of like these 3 plus another one, like the 4 doors of the mandala. On page 90, you can find some example from a sutra, the Kashyapya Paritvara Varta Sutra says, the Buddha is saying to Kashyapya, phenomena are not made empty by emptiness. Phenomena themselves are empty. That's their nature. It's not like you meditate on emptiness and suddenly they become empty. Like they're really there before you meditate or before you understand emptiness, and when you understand that, they no longer exist. Otherwise, you would be causing things that previously existed to non-exist, right? Phenomena are not made signless by signlessness. Phenomena themselves are signless. Phenomena are not made wishless by wishlessness. Phenomena themselves are wishless. The individual knowledge of those, Kashyapya, is the middle path, the correct individual knowledge of phenomena. In another sutra, he says, transmigrators wander, sentient beings, right? Wander because they do not understand emptiness, peace, and non-production. The compassionate one, who's the Buddha, guides them with method and with hundreds of reasonings. So this is referring to the three doors of emptiness, the three doors of liberation. One way of understanding is, although all three of these doors of liberation are referring to the emptiness of phenomena, they're applying in general to different, let's say, different times. Generally, when we say emptiness, it refers to emptiness of the entity of phenomena. When we talk about signlessness, we're talking about the emptiness of causes, that phenomena are empty of having the signs of being truly existent causes. So it refers to phenomena that are prior to something else. Of course, when you have something prior, if it's causative, there's an implication of something that comes after it also. What do you wish for? Do you wish for things in the past or the future? Future, that's a good way, a mnemonic device. So usually wishlessness refers to the emptiness of effects or results. The results always come after the causes. There are no truly existent results to be wished for. That's sort of in a simplistic way. We can talk about the three doors of liberation that way. If you were to, in some situations when you meditate on the emptiness of the causes of phenomena, or you meditate on the emptiness of results of phenomena, that has a greater effect in subduing the afflictions than just meditating on the entity. But they're still talking about the emptiness. The same, when you talk about signlessness and wishlessness, you're still talking about the emptiness of the phenomena, but in terms of a particular orientation. In the various commentaries in the Hinayana and Mahayana, there are different explanations to explain this. We'll just take a minute, because it's kind of a subject that will come up maybe in other situations. These three doors of liberation. So he mentions, Don Lopez's book mentions on page 89, in the Abhidharmakosha, and in this auto commentary of that by Vasubandhu, who wrote the root text, he explains these three kinds of samadhis, because the three doors of liberation are referring to mental states, mental concentrations, or samadhis, on these, let's say, on the emptiness of phenomena, on the emptiness of causes, and the emptiness of results, and so forth. He explains these three samadhis in terms of the 16 aspects of the Four Truths. Whoa. Is this getting us into trouble? Who was talking about before all these lists? Who was that? Was that you, Michelle?
No, that wasn't me.
It wasn't.
That was, somebody from
Leo.
Leo.
Was who?
Leo.
Oh, Leo's, all these lists and everything. So when we talk about the Four Noble Truths, you know the Four Noble Truths, right? I'm not sure. Peter, do you know the Four Noble Truths?
Not realizing, but I can recite them.
Yeah, what are they?
The truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of cessation, and the path of the Eightfold Noble Path.
The truth of the path, right? Yeah. Sometimes, yeah.
But I don't-
It's not
but I
truth of the
don't
path
know.
is not synonymous with the Eightfold Noble Path in the. Anyway, so that's good order. That's usually how they're laid out. So two of them, the truth of suffering, the truth of cessation, are kind of like the problem, right? That's the contaminated two noble truths. The other two are kind of like the solution. What does it say? What do they used to say when we were in college? If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, or something like that. So the second two, cessation, refers to ultimate cessation is what? Nirvana, or enlightenment, when all the afflictions are ceased. And the path to that is not necessarily the Eightfold Noble Path, that's one way of looking at it, but the path to cessation is meditative equipoise on emptiness. That's the actual path that brings about cessation. So each of these has four kinds of wrong views. Each of those truths have four wrong views that the Buddha tried to counteract in his teachings when he talked about the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths. Have you heard that before? The 16 aspects?
I only know the first 4 ones.
Right, they're famous. So what are the first? The truth of suffering has 4 wrong ideas that can prevent understanding it, which the Buddha explained 4 correct views. So what did he say about suffering? Suffering is?
I think misery or suffering, and then impermanence, empty, and selfless.
Right. And so dukkha is itself the nature of dukkha. It's like, it's not, for instance, when we talk about suffering, there are different kinds of suffering, right? Changeable suffering and all-pervasive compounded suffering. And what's the first kind? Suffering of suffering. 3 kinds. All 3 of them are of the nature of dukkha. You might say, well, only the first one is dukkha. The second one is actually happiness, right? But the Buddha said all of the contaminated experiences that we have, feelings, are of the nature of suffering. They're unsatisfactory nature. We've talked about that many times, right? Even what we call happiness is just the diminishing of one suffering, replacing it with another contaminated feeling that eventually is recognized as suffering of suffering. So he said that suffering itself is suffering. Suffering is impermanent. It's not permanent. It can come to an end. And that it is selfless. Phenomena which are suffering are selfless, and they're empty. So those are called the 4 aspects of the First Noble Truth. Here he mentions the other one. The 4 aspects of the truth of origin. So in the Four Noble Truths, usually it doesn't say the cause of suffering. It says the origin of suffering, which sounds like the cause, but it's a different word. Those 4 aspects are cause, the actual word cause, origin, strong production, and condition. So if you have a chance, you can study in various texts. Jeffrey Hopkins' text, Meditation on Emptiness, has an explanation how one can understand what are the wrong views that these 4 aspects of the Second Noble Truth are overcoming. Then the aspects of the third, the truth of cessation, its aspects are cessation, true cessation is cessation, pacification, auspiciousness, and definite emergence. Here he said, what does he say? Auspicious exaltedness. Okay. Auspiciousness. And then the fourth noble truth, the truth of the path, has 4 aspects. That the path is a path, its suitability, achievement, and deliverance. So according to Vasubandhu, the samadhi of signlessness, that's the, let's say the second, if we talk about emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness, the samadhi of signlessness is similar to the 4 aspects of the truth of cessation, such as peace. What does that mean, peace? Pacification. When we talk about cessation, there was cessation, pacification, auspiciousness, and definite emergence. So the samadhi of signlessness is similar to the 4 aspects of the truth of cessation. It is called signless because the cessation, which is nirvana, is free of the 10 signs: form, sound, odor, taste, tangibility. What are those? Those are the objects of the senses, right? Visual form, sound, odor, taste, and tangibility. Male and female, production, abiding, and cessation. The samadhi of emptiness observes selflessness and emptiness. Those are 2 of the 4 aspects of the truth of suffering. And the samadhi of wishlessness takes as its object of observation the remaining 10 aspects, because there's 16 aspects altogether. 4 of them were pervaded by the samadhi of signlessness, 2 emptiness, so that's 6 gone, so there's 10 left. So the samadhi of wishlessness observes the remaining 10 aspects, those of origin and path, That's 8. And the remaining 2 of the truth of suffering. So there's a quotation from Vasubandhu there. So you can read this section. This just as an introduction to connection with the 4 doors of the 3 doors of liberation. What's the 4th door of liberation? Do you know? The back door to liberation? Not sure.
So they listed selflessness and emptiness separately here.
No, the samadhi of emptiness observes selflessness and emptiness.
Okay, like under the...
But this is his translation. It should be selfless and empty.
Okay, but in the 4 points of the first truth,
Mm-hmm.
those were listed separately?
Yeah.
So what's up with that?
Dukkha, empty. Here's this. Suffering is impermanent, is itself suffering. It is empty, he says emptiness, and is selfless. It doesn't say selflessness or emptiness, actually, in the 16 aspects. So usually there's, according to different tenets, there's different meaning of what selfless and empty mean. Usually selfless means that the person is devoid of a self-supporting, substantially existent person. And empty has different meanings according to the different tenets. One of the meanings can mean that that phenomena are empty of being partless. That, like, for instance, the person is empty of being partless. Remember, according to some of the non-Buddhist schools in ancient India, the Vedic schools, they said there was a sort of a proposition that the person was permanent, permanent, partless, and independent, so that the Buddhists would understand the emptiness of being permanent, partless, and independent. So this empty is referring to the emptiness, the phenomena, the self in particular, are empty of being partless. It's also related with the, when we talk about the, how did it say, wrong view, the four kind of wrong views, which are very, very useful to think about. Not talking about wrong views in the sense of the mental factors, but 4 wrong misconceptions that phenomena which are actually impermanent are permanent. Phenomena which are actually the nature of suffering are fantastic. You know, they're blissful. You know, money, wine, women, and song, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, cigarettes. Phenomena that are actually selfless, the misconception is that they have a self, that the, let's say the person, which is actually selfless, has a self that can be found. And phenomena which are actually impure are actually, are conceived of and incorrectly as being pure. That's the one that's related with empty. The other ones have the same names. So how does that have to do with the parts? Well, when you meditate on repulsiveness, have you done this meditation? Venerable, you know what, like what?
The body parts.
Yeah, what one would do in meditating on the repulsiveness of the body is to analyze all the different parts of the body. Because when you think of the body, you just think of your friend or yourself. If you're very narcissistic, maybe when you're not feeling so good, you wouldn't think of yourself, your body as being pure. You might think of it as a pile of junk. But if you're imagining the body to be pure, it has a certain kind of existence. It's seemingly it's really pure or really beautiful. Let's say we can say, you know, Mona Lisa is really beautiful. This music by Beethoven is really, you know, who can argue with me? This is really beautiful. Or you know, my lover's body is really beautiful. So what one can do is analyze the parts. There's no beauty there. There's no purity there, the way that the mind conceives. If you analyze the parts, you can see that that there is no partless beauty that is there. Beauty is just something that we're conceiving of with regard to something which has many, many impure elements in it. Like say the body. If you had to sit next to the blood of your companion, or the skin, or the mucus, or the intestines, it would no longer be as the mind is conceiving, to sit next to or hold or embrace your beautiful friend. So there's a relationship between empty of parts and the misconception of purity. So those four wrong conceptions. So that's very useful to think about, because those are the antidotes to those are what the Buddha mainly taught in the sutras. He taught impermanence, one of the big, like Lama Yeshe used to say, like atom bomb to blow up our delusions. If you really understand that we're impermanent, that this life that I'm enjoying now, I'm making plans for tomorrow is going to be over very quickly. Definitely has to change. Not only is it changing every moment, it definitely has to end. But not only that, it's changing every moment. And that that which we consider to be bearable, if not fantastic, is actually the nature of suffering. That there is no self that's motivating and experiencing, tasting all of the pleasures that we imagine, or the sufferings that we imagine. And there's no purity in the way that our mind imagines. Let's say beauty, you can impute different kinds of names to this. The meditation, which is an antidote to that, is the meditation on repulsiveness. How is it translated? Do you know, Venerable? How else did they translate? Repulsiveness?
Sometimes ugliness.
Ugliness, yeah. Unattractiveness. So in Tibetan we say midukpa. Dukpa can mean different things, but one of them can mean attractive. So midukpa means unattractive or repulsive. So meditating on the fact that the body has all of these elements in them, that none of which are of their own accord attractive. Also your Lexus or your, what do you drive?
Me?
Yeah.
Oldsmobile.
Oldsmobile.
There's no beauty there.
Your Oldsmobile, there's no beauty there, If you take all of the individual parts, even if at some point it might look attractive, oh, that fender looks okay, just take the paint, take the atoms. There's nothing there which is itself attractive when you break down into parts. So that helps to overcome the sense of purity or beauty that's there. I find those a very good way to start meditation sometimes when you've got, when you've got confusion in the mind. So anyway, we won't go through all of this. There's a lot of discussion here which is not part of the commentary of our commentary, but you might find it useful to go over these. I'll just read at the end on page 92 from Atisha's commentary. So there were various commentaries written to the Heart Sutra in India, and Atisha wrote one. I'm not sure if he wrote it. He probably wrote it when he was in India. I'm not sure. But of course, he was in Tibet for many years at the end of his life. So on page 92, there's a quotation explaining one of the other Indian authors' intention in talking about the three doors. He said, the emptiness of entityness of phenomena is the door of liberation of emptiness. So that, remember, to think that phenomena have a real findable entity or self-nature or svabhava. Emptiness, the door of liberation of emptiness refers to the emptiness of that svabhava or that nature that we're, mainly one that we're talking about, some findable, truly existent nature and phenomena. emptiness and without characteristic. Those are the first two of the 8, right? All phenomena are emptiness without characteristic. Then unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient. Emptiness and without characteristic explain that phenomena lack a specific entity and a general entity, respectively. So we can talk, it often comes in the scriptures when we talk about phenomena, specific characteristics and general characteristics. General characteristics, let's say, of the phenomena on this table, the general characteristics are what? Being impermanent, being products, being empty. Those are all general characteristics. The specific characteristic of a mug is maybe its capacity to hold water. It might not be shared by a wristwatch. It has its own particular defining characteristics. Or I don't have a flower on the table, but the defining characteristic of a flower may have to do with its shape, color, and so forth, and its odor. So when we talk about defining characteristics, those are usually talked about the specific characteristics of something. Phenomena are here. Here it's saying that phenomena are when it talks about emptiness and without character. Phenomena are, what does it say? Phenomena are emptiness without characteristic. So here it's talking about that phenomena lack a specific entity and a general entity. So that means a general specific characteristic and general characteristic. Because all meanings of emptiness are included in those two perspectives, the inclusion of emptiness and without characteristic under the door of emptiness is explained. That's the reason. Signlessness is the lack of causes. Remember when we talk about the samadhi of signlessness, the door of liberation of signlessness means the emptiness of truly existent causes. So signlessness is the lack of truly existent causes. He just says lack of causes. And causes are posited in terms of effects. So the next ones, unproduced, unceased, stainless, and not stainless. Is that how we translate it here? Not without stain. Stainless, not without stain. These are included in the door of liberation of signlessness because they include the cause and the effect of the thoroughly afflicted and the cause and the effect of the completely pure. What does that mean? What is the thoroughly afflicted and the completely pure? Do you know what that means? Huh?
Is that us?
That's us. You're the completely pure, I'm the completely afflicted.
Inflicted.
In the Prajnaparamita Sutra, many times comes the statement, all phenomena from form to the omniscient mind are empty. Have you ever run across that in your reading? Did you ever see that? From form to the omniscient mind. So there's a long list. There's 108 phenomena that the Buddha, when he said it out elaborately, you might think that the same number is in the Mala. Maybe there's some reasons for these. There's 108 phenomena starting from form, which is on the afflicted side of phenomena, up to the omniscient mind, which is in the completely pure. How did they translate here? Totally pure?
Completely.
Completely pure? So, did you see the list? There was a list here somewhere. Where was it?
Page 81.
Page 81. Good. I was completely lost. Okay. So on the bottom of page 80 it says, Jnana Mitra says that phenomena from the 6 sources, so the first of the 6 sources is form, to the knower of all aspects. Knower of all aspects is a way that we can translate omniscient mind, right? All of those are empty. He refers to 108 phenomena that the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra enumerate. The Perfection of Wisdom Sutras enumerate as empty, as being empty. These phenomena are divided into two broad classes. The afflicted class, and of which there are 53 phenomena, and the pure, of which there are 55. How could you remember that? There's a little more pure than impure. It's not exactly 54, 54. Okay, is that an easy way to remember now? The afflicted class is 53. The completely pure has 55. So it comes at 108, right? All phenomena from form to the knower of all aspects, or all phenomena from form to the omniscient mind, omniscience, is the phrase that commonly appears in the Prajnaparamita Sutras, with form being the first of the 53 phenomena of the afflicted class, and the knower of all aspects, the omniscience, the Buddha's omniscient mind, being the last of the 55 phenomena of the pure class. The phenomena of the afflicted class, do you want to know what they are? We'll just go quickly. They're the 5 aggregates, the 6 sense powers, 6 sources, ayatana, the 6 consciousnesses, the 6 objects of consciousness, 6 contacts. You remember 6 contacts? When we talked about contact, the mental factor contact, there were contacts for each of the 6 senses. The 6 feelings that arise from the 6 kinds of contacts. So does that mean there are 6 kinds of feelings? No, it means eye feeling, ear feeling, nose feeling. It doesn't mean pleasure, suffering, so forth. The 6 elements. 6 elements? Sometimes they talk about 4 elements. What are the 6 elements?
I think about below and the 4 directions.
Oh, I was thinking of earth, water, fire, air, and 2 more.
Ether.
Space and consciousness.
Consciousness and space. Usually when we talk about 6 elements, so sometimes we say the person is imputed upon the 5 aggregates, right? In some other cases, you say the person is comprised of 6 elements. And when you take away those elements, the same way when you take away the aggregates, there's nothing left. The 12 branches of dependent arising, so that makes up 53. You might like to look at that. The 55 phenomena of the pure class are the 6 perfections, 6 paramitas, the 18 emptinesses. What does that mean, 18 emptinesses? Isn't there just one emptiness?
Well, there's those emptinesses of different things.
Yeah.
I just,
Okay.
who read that there were levels or something that they,
Levels of emptiness? No, when we talk about the different kinds of emptiness, the Buddha talked in some sutras about 16 emptinesses, sometimes 18, sometimes 20. So what it refers to, different bases that are taken as the object of observation of the bodhisattvas as they ascend on the bhumis. There's certain things that they particularly meditate on, the emptiness of at various times, like emptiness of time, emptiness of space, emptiness of this or that. So there are 18 kinds of emptinesses only with respect to 18 kinds of bases of those emptiness, right? It's not that the emptiness is any different. 6 perfections, 18 emptinesses, 37 harmonies of enlightenment. Do you know the 37 harmonies of enlightenment? Do you know?
Yes, but I don't know by heart.
What are some of them?
The full mindfulness.
Oh, I was thinking of Stevie Wonder. Okay. No, I'm joking. Was it?
Full mindfulness.
I think it's
Four-
like the Eightfold Path in there.
So the
Yeah.
4, pardon?
I think the Eightfold Path is in there, in the 37.
Yeah, okay.
And,
You can see in Geshe Repton's text when he talks about the various stages of in which, the whole text here, one of the hidden meanings is the 5 paths that are ascended by the bodhisattvas, also by the hearers and solitary realizers. Path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, path of no more learning, right? 5 paths. So he says they correspond to the 5 principal stages on the path of enlightenment. This is on page 37. Moreover, since these 5 paths correspond to the development of such practices as the 37 factors of enlightenment, which are called here 37 harmonies, sometimes you can see 37 facets. Here it says facets, sometimes 37 factors conducive with enlightenment, because the word harmony kind of has that sense. And moreover, since these 5 paths correspond to the development of such practices as the 37 facets of enlightenment and the 10 powers of a Buddha, the aspect of method is thereby implicitly shown. The path of accumulation corresponds to the 4 close placements of mindfulness. You want to keep track? 4. You got your fingers out? Okay, 4. The 4 abandonments. It's 8, right? The 4 miracle supports. What's that? 12. The path of preparation. What's that? To the 5 power. What's this? The 4 abandonments, the 4 miracle supports, the path of preparation to the 5 powers. Oh, I see. So this is another. So the 5 powers. What did we have before? We had 16.
Well, I'm not sure how many sets of 4 we have.
We had 4 close placements of mindfulness, 4 abandonments, 4 miracle supports. So that's 12. Then the 5 powers and the 5 strengths.
24.
22.
17, 24, 22.
22.
7 limbs of enlightenment.
29.
29. Path of, say, eightfold noble path. 30. No.
That comes to 37.
Good, finished.
Accounting.
Is it? Didn't it? Wasn't it 36?
37.
29.
And 8, 37. Okay. And the path of no more learning corresponds to the 10 powers of a Buddha. So we're talking about the 37 facets of enlightenment and the 10 powers of a Buddha. So in the Theravada tradition and the Hinayana tradition, the 37 facets of enlightenment are something meditated on very much. Also in the Zen and other traditions. When I was in Sri Lanka some years ago, I visited a monastery in, not Kandy, what's the main town in the mainland? Colombo? Or that's the detective?
Colombo, I think it is.
Is it
The
Colombo?
mountains can be.
Yeah, Kandy's the mountain, but the main where you first come into the airport is Colombo, right?
Yes.
So there was a very, very fine monastery there, a Theravada monastery that let me stay. And I remember the head monk, the abbot of the monastery, he was quite renowned. He had some kind of psychic powers. Someone had given a mad elephant to the monastery, and a mad elephant who had killed 1 or more people. And he was the only one that could. He gave the food to this elephant every day. He was the only one. Otherwise, the elephant would go crazy. So he had some kind of inner development. And I remember him saying, because he spoke a bit of English, I didn't speak any Sri Lankan. He said, the 37, harmonies or whatever, however you translate it, 37 facets of enlightenment are the only thing. You have to realize those. So it's something that you find in the development, on the path. These 37 facets are things that have to be developed and are developed by the hearers and solitary realizers and the bodhisattvas on the various elements, on the various paths.
In our tradition, do we say that you have to work on them one by one, or are they sort of realizations that come?
Well, you have to work on them. Well, you have to work on them to. There are things that are objects of meditation, say on the path of, as Geshe-la said, on the path of preparation, on the path of accumulation, mainly meditating on the 4 close placements of mindfulness and things like that. And different paths, there's certain things that are the main objects of your meditation. So the 55 phenomena of the pure class are the 6 perfections, the 18 emptinesses, the 37 harmonies of enlightenment, which we just enumerated, the 4 truths, the 4 concentrations, the 4 immeasurables, the 4 formless absorptions, the 8 liberations, the 9 serial absorptions, the path of insight, the 5 super knowledges, clairvoyances, the 4 meditative stabilizations, the 4 doors of retention, the 4 dharanis, 4 doors of dharani, the 10 powers, the 4 fearlessnesses, the 4 sciences, vidya, great love, great compassion, the 18 unique qualities of a Buddha, unshared qualities of a Buddha, stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, arhat, pratika Buddha, knower of bases, knower of paths, and knower of all aspects. So there's 108 phenomena. I think when we studied Abhisamayalankara with Geshe Tengchok in England some years ago, Thupten Pende, who was a monk at the time, there was one, that was something, it's even a longer list of things that Pende spent many days memorizing, and then it didn't turn out, it didn't come on the final exam at all. He was completely frustrated. Yes, he spent all this time memorizing this serial realization that the bodhisattvas try to meditate. I can't remember how many there were. Certain number of things instantaneously at the same time. Okay. So here, one way of understanding the Eightfold Profundity also, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristic, unproduced and unceased. So in general, phenomena are, when we talk about production means the creation of something which did not exist the previous moment. Cessation means the present non-existence of something that existed the previous moment. So we think that things are produced and are ceased. That's one of the very big topics of investigation when one meditates on emptiness. Production and cessation. If you grasp to the production of something as being truly existent, it would turn out that that's an incredible impediment, because phenomena could not be truly existently or truly produced. They're not truly produced. So when he said all phenomena are emptiness without characteristic, unproduced means they're not truly produced. They're not produced in a truly existent manner. They are conventionally produced, but how are they produced? If this is one of the analyses of emptiness, another kind of logical analysis. Remember we talked about this kind of fourfold analysis where you talked about phenomena not being identical with the basis of designation and not being different? We talked about another kind of analysis where one saw that phenomena were dependent arisings. Another kind of analysis is when you analyze that phenomena are not produced inherently from self, from themselves. Phenomena don't arise from themselves. They don't arise from something which is truly different than themselves. Actually, they do arise. A sprout does arise from the seed, right? Which is conventionally different than itself, but it doesn't arise from a truly existent other. So phenomena are not produced from truly existent self, truly existent other, truly existent both, or truly existent neither. Those are the four kinds of possibilities of production, that phenomena can arise from themselves, from something else, from both self and other. Sounds kind of appealing. Or from neither. There's kind of haphazard, what would you call that? Phenomena have no causes. They're just produced. You know? So, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristics, unproduced and unceased. So that phenomena, causative phenomena, don't cease inherently. There is a cessation which comes about because of causes and conditions, but there's not a truly existent cessation. Phenomena are stainless and not without stain, can refer to the effect of afflictions. Like phenomena themselves, the mind itself, which is stained by the afflictions. Let's take that as an example. It is not inherently, how to say, it is stainless. That it is not inherently with stain, so it is without stain. It is stainless. It is not inherently stained by the afflictions. Sometimes when we feel, I have so much attachment, I have so much anger, I have so much desire for a cigarette, whatever. I have so much love, I have so much, whatever you think. You're grasping to the inherent existence of those stains within the mind. So this is talking about the non-inherent existence of those stains, so that phenomena are not inherently stained. They are stainless. It doesn't mean that all phenomena are stainless. It means that they are not inherently stained by the afflictions. The mind, let's say the mind stream is an example. There are other ways of interpreting it, as you can see in the different commentaries. And yet they are not without stain. So it is not that the state of nirvana, a cessation of the stains from the mind, is one in which the stains are inherently truly existently not there. If they were truly existently, if the mind was truly existently stainless when you achieved nirvana, the stains could never have been there to begin with, because they would have had to be permanent.
So you could just about put inherent in front of each one of these things?
It's in fact, all through the Heart Sutra, what's being referred to is truly existent. When it says no eye, no nose, no tongue, and so forth, it means there's no truly existent eye. There's no truly existent or naturally existent.
I've noticed in the paragraph that's like at the bottom of page 9 on our text, it says Shariputra, therefore in emptiness there is no this and that. Seems like that in emptiness has to be sort of carried through.
No, that's talking about something else, Venerable. That's talking about in the meditative state, the meditative equipoise on emptiness.
Yeah.
To the face of that meditative equipoise, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, and so forth. But what it doesn't mean that. But in general, when it talks about in other sutras also, when the Buddha says there is no this, there is no that, not just in emptiness, he's referring to the fact that there's no truly existent phenomena. Okay, there's no truly existent eye, no truly existent nose, and so forth. So phenomena are stainless, not without stain. They're not deficient and not fulfilled. So we might think that we, right now, are deficient. We're not yet. There's a state of Buddhahood that we could attain, but we're not there. There's no way that we could attain that because we don't have what it takes. We're truly existently deficient. So phenomena are not deficient and not fulfilled. Even the state of Buddhahood is one in which is not a truly existent fulfillment of all of the good qualities. There are many ways of these 8 in particular. The various Indian commentaries had various and sundry explanations to them. Let's see what Geshe Rapton said at this point. Okay. This is on page 38 on the bottom. Once one has reached the path of seeing, one realizes non-conceptually and immediately, with direct perception, that every single phenomenon is void of any independent self-existence. The nature of this insight is further clarified in the text by listing certain qualities of the voidness perceived. It is said that the phenomena are seen to be without defining characteristics. So here's another explanation of that. This, as well as the following qualification, should not be taken literally. Generally speaking, phenomena do have defining characteristics, right? Matter is defined as that which is composed of atoms, and consciousness is that which is clear and knowing. Remember, we had the definition of consciousness. What is meant here is that phenomena have no inherently existent defining characteristics that exhibit themselves independently of mental imputation. Likewise, phenomena are in fact produced from causes, and they cease when the conditions for their existence no longer obtain. To say that phenomena are unproduced and do not cease, or are what do I say, without cessation? how did it say here? Unproduced, unceased. To say that means that they are not inherently produced and do not inherently cease, independent of any other conditions. So it's talking always with the proviso of misunderstanding these states as inherently existent. Defilements, or stains, as we translate here, such as hatred, attachment, and ignorance also exist, but phenomena are said to be undefiled or unstained in the sense that they are not inherently defiled by such attitudes. To meditate on the non-inherent existence of the defilements, meditate on the emptiness of the anger and attachment and so forth, is an effective way to overcome their domination over us. Okay? My anger is not something which is truly existent. It arises, if it were truly existent, the way that it seems like it's really there and findable, almost as though it couldn't be eradicated from the mind. Meditating on the emptiness of that it arises from causes and conditions, but that it's not findable in the way that our mind is grasping to it, leads a certain amount of openness in the mind that allows you then to understand that it can be eliminated through the process of the path. Likewise, when we attain enlightenment, we become separated from defilements, but that is stainless. But this state of being separated from defilement is not an inherently existent state. It only comes about in dependence upon actualizing the path and thus accumulating the necessary conditions that make it possible. Similarly, our practice of Dharma is subject to decrease and increase. Sometimes it seems to deteriorate and become weaker. At other times it grows and becomes stronger. Here, Geshe-la is taking a slightly different meaning than is in some of the commentaries when it's talking about the state of being deficient and compared to the state of actually omniscience and being totally fulfilled. But there is never any inherent decrease or increase that take place independently of causes and conditions or mental imputation. It is in such ways that the Arya intuitively perceives all phenomena. Okay. So this is called the eightfold profundity. So this is how we began that section. Some of the renditions of the Heart Sutra, I think, particularly in Japan, not absolutely certain. I think the Japanese take from some Sanskrit versions. They just start here. Form is empty. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. That's talking about the fourfold, the so-called fourfold profundity with respect to each of the five aggregates. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. We'll mention a little bit next time again how these eight can be included in the three doors of liberation. And then just as a, preparation, antipasto to next time, Shariputra, therefore in emptiness, it means in the state of meditative equipoise, absorption on emptiness, no conventional phenomena whatsoever appear to the consciousness. And as there's no truly, all that one perceives is emptiness. So in that emptiness, there is no form. There's no conventional form, no feeling, no discrimination, so forth. None of the five aggregates. No consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. So talking about the six entrances and the in terms of the sense bases and their corresponding objects, no visual form and so forth. And then he says there is no I element, that means dhatu, up and so on, up to and including no mind element, no mind dhatu, and no mental consciousness dhatu. And then there's no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so forth, up to and including no aging and death and no extinction of aging and death. This is talking about the 12 links, both the contaminated and the uncontaminated. no suffering or origination, cessation, a path, the Four Noble Truths, no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. So we'll talk about that next time. You get a chance to review your texts. If you find some time, prepare, that'd be good. So let's dedicate merits we created. So dedication, remember, is a conventional, first dedication that we do, conventional dedication is one in which you aspire that the merits that we've created ripen in some particular way, so that they're not exhausted, usually dedicated in very skillful ways, as the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra and other great bodhisattvas themselves exemplified. So we can think, due to these merits, may they not ripen simply in my enjoyment within cyclic existence alone, to be used up once, but may they ripen in such a way that they continually cause me to overcome my faults, purify my faults, to develop good qualities, to eventually practice the Bodhisattva's perfections and the basis of both renunciation and bodhicitta. And to realize, due to these merits, may I in particular realize the essence of the Heart Sutra, the meaning of emptiness, the perfection of wisdom. Following the Bodhisattva path, due to these merits, may I also encounter and practice in this and future lifetimes the path of secret mantra, quickly achieve enlightenment for the welfare of all sentient beings. So you can seal that dedication, because when you're dedicating, if you're imagining and grasping to the merits as truly existent, or the goals as truly existent, or the act of dedication, your aspiration and so forth, is real and findable, that doesn't allow the dedication to protect the merits from the fires of anger and so forth. So try to seal in the meditation the emptiness of the three spheres. The merits are imputed to exist. They're conventionally existent, but not inherently existent. The merits that I've created. The goals dedicated to do not inherently exist, do not truly exist, can't be found from their own side. They're just imputedly existent, like all phenomena, like the self. And the act of dedication, the dedicator, the aspiration, and so forth, just a name imputed upon to these moments, collection of parts.